Welcome to Lasea class. I am your teacher, Jan Lasea.
Ladies and gentlemen, a blessed day to everyone. This is my third lecture on our subject, ITE 124, Event-Driven Programming. In my previous lecture, I explained the class and object and the GUI control mass text box. Also, I demonstrated using Visual Studio IDE on how to set the properties of mass text box, add a class, and instantiate an object. Today, we are going to learn the GUI controls such as combo box, list box, checkbox, radio button, and group box. A list box displays a list of items from which we can make a selection. We can select one or more than one of the items from the list. The property selected index of the list box contains the index of the item selected. An index of -1 means there is no selected item. The event name selected index change is triggered when the user selects an item on the list box. In this example list box, if the populated values are Java, C++, C#, and so on, Java has an index of 0, C++ has an index of 1, and so on and so forth. Combo box is a combination of a text box and a list box. The combo box displays an editing field, the text box, combined with a list box, allowing us to select from the list or to enter new text. Combo box displays data in a drop-down style format. The property selected index of the combo box contains the index of the item selected. An index of -1 means there is no selected item. The event selected index change is triggered when the user selects an item on the combo box. If the populated values of the combo box are BSIT1, BSIT2, BSIT3, BSIT4, the first item, BSIT-1, has an index of 0. The next item, BSIT-2, has an index of 1, and so on and so forth. This property selected index contain the selected index if the user select one of the items on the combo box. A checkbox is a control which gives us an option to select, say yes or no, or true or false. A checkbox is clicked to select and click again to deselect some option. When a checkbox is selected, a check, a tick mark, appears indicating a selection. A checkbox provides a multiple choices scheme. That is, you can check many items. The property check of the checkbox indicates the status. If the check property contains a true, then it is marked check. Else, if it contains false, then it is unchecked. The event check change is triggered when the user checks the checkbox and when change its status. A group box displays a frame around a group of controls, with or without a caption. Use a group box to logically group a collection of controls on a form. The group box is a container control that can be used to define groups of controls. The typical use for a group box is to contain a logical group of radio buttons controls. If you have two group boxes, each of which contains several option buttons, also known as radio buttons, each group of buttons is mutually exclusive, setting one option value per group. A radio button works like the button on a car radio. Each button on a car radio selects a station, and pushing a button deactivates the button that was previously pushed. All radio buttons in a form belong to one group by default. Selecting one deselects the others. A radio button provides a single choice scheme, and it must be placed inside a group box control to function into single choice. The property check of the radio button indicates the status. If the check contains true, then it is marked selected. Else it contains false, then it is unselected. The event check change is triggered when the user selects the radio button and when changes its status. Ladies and gentlemen, let us create a Windows application project that uses the GUI controls, combo box, and list box. I click the Create New Project. I filter the search C#. I select Windows Form App.NET Framework and then click Next. I specify the project name, combo box, and list box. I specify the location folder where to save this project. And then click Create button. Let us first set the mode of compilation to release by clicking this combo box or drop down button, release. Next, let us click the project menu and then set some properties of this Windows application project. I browse my icon to be the icon of this Windows application project. Next, I click the build. I specify the platform target of x86, a 32-bit Windows application. And then I click the Advanced button and then select the debugging information to none. And then click OK. And then click Save All. Let us close this application project properties. Let us set some properties of this form. I right-click this form 1 and then select Properties. On the Properties panel located at the bottom right, on the text property, I will place combo box and list box. I scroll above and set the font to Arial. Font style regular, size 12, and then click OK. Next, I set the icon of this form. Next, let us go to the property name, start position. I will select center screen. Next, I go to the property size. I set the width and height to 640 by 480. And then I press the enter key. Next, I go to the form border style property and then set to fix single so that we cannot change the width and height of this form when it is in runtime. Next, we go to the property minimize, maximize button, change that true to false so that it will not display the maximize button by and by. Also, the minimize button, I set it to false. And then as you could see, the minimize and then the maximize button were gone. Only the close button remained. Next to that, we will place some labels, combo box, and list box and button using the toolbox. I click this toolbox. I place first a label. I change the text property value of that label to combo box and list box. I set the font size to Arial, bold, and font lettering size, font size 36. And then the font color, I set it to blue. And then I select this combo box, and then I click this center horizontally. Next, let us place another label. I change the text property of the label, value, select your course, year. And let us change the font size to Arial, font style regular, and then size 14. Let us place a combo box from the toolbox. I drag and drop a combo box. I go to the properties of the combo box, change the name property to CMB course year. Next to that, I go to another property, the property cursor, and then select assign a value Han. And then next to that, we can change the font, only the font size, to size 14. Next, let us adjust. Let me copy this label, change the text value property, select your programming language. Come next, let us place a list box from the toolbox. Let us drag and drop a list box. From the property of the list box, we will change the name of the list box to list box programming languages. Let me adjust a little bit the width of that list box. And another property that we can set for the list box is the cursor. I change the value of the cursor to Han. Next, let us place two labels and one button. I copy this label. The first label that I copied to, let us go to the name. We will change this name to LBL selected 1. I select the second label. I will also change the name property to LBL selected 2. I scroll down and then adjust a little. And let us place a button. From the toolbox, I drag and drop a one button. I change the name property of the button, BTN exit. I go to the text property of the button and then change to exit. Also to the property cursor, we will set to Han cursor. Let us adjust the width and height of that button. We can also make the font size a lot bigger. Set it to 14, and then I click this button and then center horizontally. Next, let us write some code in the form. I select this form, right click it, and then click View Code. I press Shift Alt Enter to display in full screen, and then let us go to the default constructor of this form. I will put a label of that default constructor so that you would know. Next, let us declare some properties of form 1. I assign it private. I assign a data type string. I will name the property or variable course year, and another property or variable programming language. Let us now go to the constructor. Inside the constructor, we will initialize the two string variables, course year and programming language. We will initialize them both to a null string. Next, let us populate the combo box, which is the course and year combo box. I reference the name CMB course year, and then I put a period to access one of its property name items. I put again another period to access a method add property, and then we can pass a string, and that will be the items to be populated to that combo box BSIT1. Let me copy this one so that it will be a lot faster. I will populate the course year combo box to the following strings: BSIT-1, -2, -3, BSIT-4. Next, let us populate the list box. The list box is the programming languages. Let me reference the name list box programming languages. Place a period, access the property items, place again another period. Just like the combo box, it also has a method add to add an object like a string, and that will be the item to be populated to the list box. I will place a programming language Java. Let me copy that, and then edit them to another programming language like C++, C#, VB.NET, PHP, JavaScript. Let me copy and let me edit. Next is Python. Another is Ruby, Swift, and Objective-C. Let us compile, run, and test. From the build menu, I click clean solution. And then from the build menu, we need to wait. From the build menu, I click the rebuild solution. And we need to read the messages on this output panel. And it is busy compiling. This is the progress indicator that it is compiling. If the message rebuild all, 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 skip, therefore we can now run and test. I go to the debug menu and then select start without debugging, or you can press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl F5. Let us test if the combo box has a values to be selected. If I click the drop down button, it is populated by the following course in here, and it is evident that this list box is populated by the names of various programming languages. Let us add some more codes so that if I select one of these, our program can detect what is the value selected from the combo box. Also, if I select from the list box, our code should know what is the item selected in the list box. The combo box that the user select a value will reflect in this label. The list box selected by the user, the item selected in the list box will reflect in this second label here. Let us close our Windows application and go back to Visual Studio IDE. I click the form design. I select the combo box, right click it, and then click properties. From the properties panel, I click this event property. And the property that we will going to bind a code is the selected index change event. And here it is, selected index change event. I simply double click this text box combo box, and then the Visual Studio IDE created a event handler. Let us place some code inside. I will reference the memory variable course here, which is a string, to store what was the selected value from the combo box. The property items is a string, an array of string I should say, and we need to specify an index that was currently selected when the user select an item from the combo box. The property selected index of the combo box contains the index that was selected by the user from the combo box. So I will type CMB course here and then select the selected index property, and it will become an index to the array name items. We will convert this into a string, and it will be stored to the variable course year. To have a feedback, we will place some message on the label name select LBL selected one, and this would be the message: you have selected that course and year. Let us go back to the form design. Let me select the list box, right click it, select properties, and then here I click this property button. If you wanted to go to the properties, you simply click this properties to switch from event handler, or events to properties of that control. The event that we are going to bind code to the list box is the selected index change, similar with the combo box. And here it is. I simply double click in this combo box, and then let me full screen it so that you can see the code. And let us place a code inside to get the selected item from the list box. I will reference the memory variable programming language, which is a string, and I will reference the object name listbox programming languages, period, and then the array name items. Just like the combo box, the selected index property of the listbox contains the index that the user selected from the list. So we need to reference listbox programming languages, period, selected index, and it will become the index of the array of items. Next, we put a period and convert it to a string and store it to the memory variable programming language. Next, let us place a feedback to the second label, name LBL selected to the text. This message, you have selected string concatenator plus the memory variable programming language. Let us bind a code to the button exit. I double click the button exit, and you know already the command on how to close a Windows application in C#, and that command is the application.exit command. Let us build and then clean solution, build again and then rebuild solution, and wait. Rebuild all, 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 skip, and let us run by clicking debug, start without debugging. If I select one of the items of the combo box, BSIT2, this label will reflect that selection you have selected, BSIT2. If I'm going to change it to BSIT3, therefore this label will also update and reflect what was selected in the combo box. In the list box, if I select C#, the second label will feedback you have selected C#. If I select Java, and then you have selected Java. Let us click exit, and we are done. Ladies and gentlemen, let us create another Windows application project that uses the GUI controls, namely checkbox, radio button, and group box. I click the Create New Project. From the filter, I will filter the search to C# and then select Windows Forms App.NET Framework, and then click the Next button. I type the project name, checkbox, radio button, and group box. I specify the location where to store this project, and then click the Create button. First, I'm going to specify the mode of compilation. From the toolbar, I select this combo box value release. Let us set some project properties. I click the project menu. I select this checkbox, radio button, and group box properties. I'm going to browse the icon to be used in the Windows application. Next, I click the build button and then I specify the platform target x86, which is a 32-bit Windows application. I scroll down below and then I click advanced. I set the debugging information to none and then click OK. I click save all and then close this tab. Next, let us set some form properties. I right click this form 1 and then click properties. From the properties panel located at the bottom to the right, let us change the text property value to checkbox, radio button, and group box. I scroll up and then I set the font property to Arial. Font style regular, font size 12, and then click OK. I set the icon of this form to my user-defined icon. And let us scroll down and then set the start position to center. And then the size to 640 by 480, 640 width, and 480 height. And then I press the enter key. Next, let us put some label title. Drag and drop from the toolbox. I change the text property value to checkbox, radio button, and group box. I change the font size to Arial, font style bold, font size to 26. Let us test that 26. Let us change to a smaller font. Let's say 24. I select this label and then click this button, center horizontally. I change the fore color to blue. Let us place two group boxes. I click the toolbox and then I drag and drop one group box. And then I will drag and drop another group box. I select the first group box. I go to the property of that group box, text property, and I will change it to hobbies. The second group box, I also change the text property to sports. Let me change the width and height of this group box. Let us place some checkboxes inside the group box named Hobbies. From the toolbox, I locate that checkbox and then drag and drop. From the property of that checkbox, the text property, I will type play guitar. I scroll up and modify the name. I will name this checkbox CH key, play guitar. Next property to set is the cursor property. I change it to hand cursor. Let me copy this checkbox to 3 copies. 1, 2, 3. I select the second checkbox. I will name this check CHK computer programming. I change the text property to computer programming. I click the third checkbox. I change the text property to read books. I change the name to CHK Read Books. I select the fourth checkbox. I change the name property to CHK Watch Anime. I change the text property to Watch Anime. Next, let us place a radio button to the group name Sports. From the toolbox, I drag and drop a radio button. In the text property of the radio button, I change it to basketball. I will name this Radio BTN Basketball. I will copy this radio button 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. I select the second property. I will name this to Radio Volleyball. Radio BTN Volleyball. I change the text value to volleyball. Let me edit the name. Small letter ball. I select the third radio button and I change the name property to Radio BTN Soccer. I change the text property to soccer. Finally, the last fourth radio button, the text property, I will place martial arts. I change the name property to Radio BTN Martial Arts. Let us place a button exit. I change the name property of that button to BTN exit. I set the cursor to hand cursor. And then the text property value to exit. I modify the width and height and then center horizontally. Let us save all. Next, let us place some code inside the form, inside the class form 1. I right click this form and then select view code. I press Shift Alt Enter key to switch to full screen. Let us place some code inside the default constructor. Let us initialize the property check of both the checkbox and radio button. I reference the name CHK, play guitar, put a period, the property check, I will assign or initialize to false. That means that it is unchecked at the beginning when we run for the first time. I will copy that code and then modify the name of the second code to CHK computer programming. Next, the third one, read books. And then the fourth one is watch anime. Let us initialize also the check property of the radio buttons. I will reference the radio button basketball, put a period, access the property name check, and initialize to false. I will copy that code 3 times, modify the second code to BTN volleyball. The third one is radio BTN soccer. And then finally, radio BTN martial arts. Let us run I first save all and then click the build menu, select clean solution. I click again the build menu and then rebuild solution. Rebuild all, 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 skip. Let us run, click debug menu and then select start without debugging. If I check the checkbox and uncheck it, if I check one of the radio button, if I check twice the same radio button, it will not uncheck or unselect. You must select another radio button so that it will be unselected. Let us put a message box as a feedback whenever we click the checkbox or select the radio button, so that our code will know if the checkbox, for example, play guitar, was selected or checked or not. Also, if one of the radio button is selected or not. Let us close and go back to the form design. I select the first checkbox, right click it, and then select properties. From the properties panel located at the bottom to the right, I click this event, and then the event that we will going to bind a code for the checkbox is the check change event. And here it is. I already located. And I will double click this comma box, and the Visual Studio IDE will create a event handler check change. I will type this code to determine if the checkbox is selected or not. The property check, as I already discussed, is a Boolean data type that if it is true, that means that the checkbox is currently checked. Otherwise, it is not checked. So we place a feedback C sharp is case sensitive. If it is a small letter, it must be small letter. Let me copy this message box. Okay, let us go back to the form design. I will select the second checkbox, right click it, and then select properties. I go to the property name check change, and I will also bind a code. And then the code is the same code as the first checkbox. So I'm going to copy and then paste. I go back to the form design and then right click the third checkbox, select properties. From the property panel, I double click check change event and then paste the same code. I go back to the form design and then right click the last fourth checkbox. I go to the event name check change and then double click it and then paste the code. Let us save all and then build clean solution, rebuild solution, and let us run to test. If I click play guitar, the message box, you check play guitar. If I uncheck it, it will feedback, you uncheck play guitar. If I select computer programming, you check computer programming. If I check watch anime, it will feedback, you check watch anime. Let us also bind a code to the check change event handler of the radio button to also have a feedback. I right click the first radio button and then select properties. From the properties panel event, I locate the check change and then double click it, and let us put a code to the radio button check change event. It is similar with the combo box. Let me copy this message box. Let us bind a code to the exit button so that if I click exit, it will terminate. Let us save all, click build clean solution, click build rebuild solution, and rebuild all. 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 skip. Therefore, we can now run. Let us test the radio button. If I select basketball, it will respond. You select basketball. If I select martial arts, it will respond. You unselected basketball. And then if I click volleyball, okay, the basketball is only applied with that event. So we need to bind also a event handler check change event to the radio button volleyball, soccer, martial arts. Let us go back to the form design, and then I select the volleyball. I right click it and then select properties. In the event, we will going to bind a code in the event check change. The code is similar, the same with the first radio button, so I'm going to copy and then paste it. I right click the third radio button, select properties. From the property panels, I locate the event check change and then double click and then paste. And then finally, the radio button martial arts, I right click it and then select properties. From the properties panel, I double click check change event to bind a code and then paste. Save all. Let us click build clean solution, build rebuild solution. 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 skip. Let us run, click debug, start without debugging. Let us check the radio button. If I click basketball, you select basketball. If I click volleyball, it says a message, you unselect basketball, and then another message box, you select volleyball. If I click martial arts, it will display the first message, you unselect volleyball, and it will display the second message, you select martial arts. And then I click the exit. Let us run again. I click the debug and then start without debugging. Now you notice that it displays a message, you select martial arts. But in the first place, I did not click martial arts. Let me exit again and then run one more time. You select martial arts and then it selected the martial arts radio button, but I did not click it. If you encounter this problem, to fix this problem, we will write a code in the form 1, in the class form 1. And the code that we will write is to specify the tab order, that the first tab order will be the button exit. And it will set focus on the button exit. And here is the code. We will reference the btn exit, and then the property tab index, set it to 0, meaning that is the first control to be focused during runtime. So let us save first before we compile. Let us run. As you can see, there is no message box appear, and we can see the checkboxes are unchecked, and then the radio buttons are unchecked as well. You notice that this button has a blue around that indicates that that is the focus. It is focus, meaning it is active. If I hit the enter key, it is the equivalent of clicking the button exit, and that is the tab index. The purpose of that tab index is if you put a value of 0, that will be the first active focus on your form, the control, not this martial arts radio button. And that ends my demonstration. I posted your third assignment in our Google Classroom. Please answer and accomplish it.
That ends our topic for today. I hope you are inspired in my class. Thank you for watching. God bless us.